Hari Jaya Rad Amadava Kunja Vihari Jaya Rad Amadava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Vajrajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Vajrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiara Banachari Yamuna Tiara Banachari. So, today we are reading from the Transcendental Diary, Volume 4, Chapter 1, in Tehran, Iran. We'll read a couple things and comment here. Prabhupada went for his walk as usual at 6 a.m., but allowed me to stay back and catch up on my rest. The devotees took him out to nearby Niyavaran Park, situated next to the palace of the same name, which the Shah of Iran uses for receiving visiting diplomats and heads of states. It is the same place we walked last year when we visited with his servant Kshudi Kirti and secretary Paramahansa Swami. Before they left, I handed the recorder over to Perdumya with instructions how to use it so that no valuable comments Prabhupada might make would be lost. Srila Prabhupada didn't disappoint the devotees, who were all eager to hear whatever he had to say. He talked freely, pointing out the foolishness of trying to maintain the body as the goal of life, and the futility of materialistic family life. He explained how modern religions are meant for the envious. That is the material world, envious. That is a disease to become envious. The spiritual world means no enviousness. So I guess if we want to go there, we should give it up. That is the spiritual world. In material world, there is only envious. I'm envious of you. You are envious of me. It is a society of the envious. Dharma projita kaivato tra paramo nirmahansara paramo nirmatsara. One who is not at all envious, for him Bhagavat Dharma. This other Dharma is for envious person. Navayovana expressed a little surprise that Dharma could be for the envious. Yes, so-called dharmas, Srila Prabhupada told him. Just like what we have created so many dharmas, Hindu dharma, Muslim dharma, Christian dharma, they are so-called. They are not dharmas. Dharma tu shakshat bhagavat pranihitam. Dharma means that what is given to you by the Supreme Lord, that is dharma. Otherwise, if you manufacture some ritualistic ceremonies, some formulas, some dogmas, that is cheating, that is not religion. Savai pumsam param dharmo. That is first-class religion. What is that? Yato bhaktir et hoksaje. Wherefrom you learn how to love God. If you learn, I believe this, I believe that, this is our ritualistic ceremony. These are all cheating. As people are cheating one another in different ways, this is another cheating, that's all. They will say, we believe in this, we believe in that. So what is that? You believe in this way, what is the fact? If you believe something wrong, so what is that? You believe in that way. What is the fact? If you believe something wrong, it is taken to be religion. They say, tata dehantara prapti. Other religious sects, they say This is Hindu belief. When Krishna says, Dehoshminyata dehe, komaram yovanam jara, just like the child is becoming boy, boy is becoming mad. This is science. And why do they say it is Hindu belief? Does it mean that a Muslim or a Christian child does not become a boy? What do you mean by Hindu belief? But they say it is like that Hindu belief. Is that correct? If something says it is Hindu belief, no, in fact it is science. What do you think? Is it Hindu belief? No, it's just like you said, Srila Prabhupada Dayananda said, it is given by the Supreme Lord. But Prabhupada was more down to earth. Apart from the Supreme Lord, it is the law of nature. Prakriti karmani, the law, nature's law is acting like that. How you can avoid the laws of nature? If young man says, no, I'll not become old man, will the law of nature excuse him? Maybe? You get an exemption somewhere? Because you do not like it. Oh, since I don't like it, I can get an exemption. Interesting. You have to become old man. The law of nature is working so strongly. But this rascal is proud of his own belief. This is foolishness, muda. The devotees are fully enlivened with their close and personal relationship with His divine grace. Preaching in such an isolated country, with little contact with the rest of the worldwide devotional community, has its compensations. In such circumstances, when Prabhupada comes, everybody gets the opportunity to speak with him and share some informal and intimate moments. We see that everybody wanted from Prabhupada. Yoga Krishna says in the 34th verse of the 4th chapter, Tat vidi panipratena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gyanam gyananivas tattvadarshanaha, that we approach a self-realized person, inquire submissively, and render service unto him. And that person can impart knowledge to you because he's seen the truth. Krishna also mentions about the Tattvadarshan's in the 16th verse of the second chapter, that they have studied the nature of the temporary and the eternal. It says, of the eternal, there is no cessation, and of the non-existence, there is no endurance. And these Tattvadarshan's know this by studying the nature of both. So when people are just speculating on it, you want to go to someone who knows. Let's say we open up a nail salon, and Medhavi, Kshudi and I try to run it remotely on the phone. Trouble is, we know nothing about the nail salon. And if the better we sound, the worse the business gets. So, as Prabhupada is saying here, people believe in all kinds of things. I don't want to believe I'll die, so that gives me an exemption. It's funny, I was on the plane coming here, and Shrudakirti and his wife Vishaka were also on the plane, and they got the Ekadasi menu. And the Ekadasi menu, there was like 5 kinds of spinach vegetables, and there was cakes made out of sabudana, and with coconut pieces, and condensed milk, and I thought I must be dreaming. And then when Advaitacharya came out to serve the prasadam, then I knew I was dreaming. But because I really wanted this bad, it happened, right? On the plane, they came with an Ekadasi menu with all kinds of... There is no Ekadasi menu. But because I wanted it, I thought that's there. And things we don't... we wanted Prabhupada because Prabhupada is experiencing Krishna. And therefore we can see that it's real. People don't believe in things they don't experience. The kids in India didn't believe about an expressway or a freeway in America because they didn't have it. I'll tell you something I stopped believing in. You notice I always come here in December when it's summer. So I forgot that colder weather existed. I came here, I had 1 pair of socks, and fortunately Darren lent me a jacket because I haven't been experiencing cold weather. So I forgot that it existed. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can tolerate cold weather. Of course, as long as it doesn't go below 27. I'm always making them turn off the air conditioner. So because I haven't experienced it, I stop believing in it. You know, we get certain fallacious ideas, like chanting is important just like breathing. We don't have to do them every day, just most days, right? I could skip a couple days of breathing or chanting. Now that I've been doing it so long, what does a couple days hurt? And nobody minds skipping a few days of eating, do they? And they don't mind working, skipping a few days of getting paid. No, of course they do. So if we stop experiencing something, we forget that it exists. But just like the cold weather is real, the spiritual energy is real. So people wanted me, they says, oh, we want your good association. So we brought Medhavi and Kshudi Kirti, they're my good association. So you wanted my good association, now it's here. But the main association we get is through Prabhupada's books and his lectures. People put all kinds of things on the internet. Some of it's even true. Kshudi Kirti brought up the comment that why are they putting so many things on that are useless? And I was hearing Prabhupada talk about the treasure house of wisdom we have. We should be sharing the best things that we have. We cook up a wonderful feast, and outside you're giving people leaves from the tree. And this is what happens. We should think of what is the highest and best use of my time. What is the best thing I can give? Sometimes it's just simple things. But Facebook provides those for you. They come up with reels where Prabhupada talks for 3-4 minutes about one subject matter. If you just share that, it doesn't require an explanation. So I guess that's the trouble. They say with the computer and like the internet, garbage goes in, garbage comes out. So I use the same theory, but I put Krishna conscious knowledge in so that Krishna conscious knowledge will come out instead of garbage. Because we don't need garbage. And even if we do, there's a lot of it out there, isn't there? Isn't there an extra supply of garbage? So we will read on. Prabhupada returned by 7:30 and entered the ground floor of the house for a short morning program. The downstairs consists mainly of a hallway, guest bedroom, pantry, kitchen, and a large living room with an adjoining dining area. Devotees have put Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan, which is usually kept upstairs in the dining room, and a simple Panchatattva altar faces it from the opposite end of the living room. The yatra here may be small, but it is certainly not poor. The floor coverings in the living room are Persian carpets of navy blue and red floral design worth about $12,000 each. What do you think those are worth now? Probably a couple hundred. Persian carpets have gone way down in value. That's why we're banking on something being worth a lot. Not necessarily true. But the spiritual advancement we get will always be worth the same, and it grows. Srila Prabhupada mounted his Vyasasan, a converted armchair, covered with an orange brocade sari, to receive Guru Puja from the enthusiastic devotees. Then at the end of the kirtan, we all sat on the opulent rugs, eager to hear his lecture. It turned out to be very short, hardly 1 minute on Srimad Bhagavatam, 3.22.19. Prabhupada had Pradumya read out the Sanskrit verse, word for word transliterations, and translation. It described Kardama Muni's desire to marry, have a child, and then retire from family life. Pradumya read the purport, which was exceptionally interesting. According to Vedic principles, the first part of life should be utilized in brahmacharya, or the development of character and spiritual qualities. Did we learn that in high school? My friend Bob Morell and I learned that in high school. Maybe that's because we went to see Prabhupada in L.A. And we had one humanities class where the whole class went to see Prabhupada on a field trip. So we did learn about brahmachari life in high school, but not from the high school itself. For the development of character and spiritual qualities. In the next part of life, one may accept a wife and beget children, but one should not beget children like cats and dogs. I think a lot of people didn't read that instruction, right? Krishna says that society is destroyed by the unwanted population, and you see the places where they have crimes and where they have riots. The children who feel unwanted, they create all kinds of problems. Can anyone come up with an argument to dispute this? Is it not the unwanted children who create the problems? So if you can't create wanted children, better stay in the brahmachari ashram. Let's see here. Kardama Muni desired to beget a child who would be a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should beget a child who can perform the duties of Vishnu. Otherwise, there is no need to produce children. There are two kinds of children born of good fathers. One is educated in Krishna consciousness so that he can be delivered from the clutches of Maya in that very life. And the other is a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and teaches the world the ultimate goal of life, as it will be described in later chapters. Kardama Muni begot such a child, Kapila, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enunciated the philosophy of Sankhya. Great householders prayed to God to send his representative so that there may be an auspicious movement in human society. This is one reason to beget a child. Another reason is that a highly enlightened parent can train a child in Krishna consciousness so that the child will not have to come back again to the miserable world. In the same order as Kardama Muni, about 100 years ago, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also wanted to beget a child who would preach the philosophy and teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the fullest extent. By his prayers to the Lord, he had as such child Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya through the entire world through his bona fide disciples. Srila Prabhupada's few added comments were highly relevant to this small community of householders. So Srila Prabhupada's life is not condemned. Household life is not condemned, it is required. If there are no householders, then where from the saintly persons will come? They will not drop from the sky. So everything is required. In our society, we have got householders. We have got brahmacharis. We have got sannyasis. So Krishna conscious movement is a very scientific movement for the total benefit of human society. If it is properly carried out, then everyone will be satisfied and happy and go back to Godhead. Thank you. This is something we learned about commenting about things. It said here that Prabhupada added a few comments that were highly relevant. So when we comment on things that go on in the material world, we have to learn them through the Krishna conscious perspective, not just voice the opinions of other people that may be incorrect. And therefore they either be not useful or detrimental, or people spot those points that they're not correct. You see, sometimes Prabhupada comments on things within society. And of course the scriptures comment on it. A couple of days ago in the Rohini temple, I gave a talk about how the government was changed in Sri Lanka. You know how it was changed there? Well, this one demon leader was there. And when Lord Rama shot an arrow into his heart and killed him, that's how the government was changed in Sri Lanka. So, same way the government was changed in Mathura. You'd think after Kamsa had failed so many times to kill Krishna, they say if you can't beat them, join them. And he's saying, I mean, he sent all the demons and they all failed and the wrestlers failed and the elephant. So you'd think now would be time to say, okay, Krishna, I give up. But then he said, okay, arrest Nanda Maharaj and Vasudev and have them all killed. And what did he do after that? Nothing. He got killed by Krishna, and Krishna pulled him around the arena. It was a real drag. But that's what he gets by. We think we're getting away with things. Sisupala criticized Krishna 99 times. One more time wouldn't hurt, would it? If 99 times was okay, will the 100th time cause a problem? We could make arguments about this. It looks like it's true, but it's not, because the 100th time, Krishna sent him the disc and he got his head cut off. So Prabhupada does comment about things, but he does it in the light of Krishna consciousness to teach us how we should act. I know as Prabhupada says that the communists have the idea that it all belongs to the state, but we say it all belongs to God. And he's commenting on how they're all saying it belongs to them. In America, they're saying that it belongs to them, but they stole it from the Red Indians. So he does mention their plight, but he mentions it in the way that if we were practicing Krishna consciousness, each of the people would be able to get the rights that they have. In the Vedic system, it's a duty-based ethics. If everybody does their duty, then automatically people get the rights. So Prabhupada doesn't have us out with the signs, support the Native Americans. But he does point out in history where things done in a non-Krishna conscious manner have difficult consequences. But what we have to do is study from Prabhupada and the scripture to see that whatever things we're interjecting, we're doing it in such a way that we're giving people Krishna consciousness, not diverting their attention away to so many other things. That's why sometimes the easy thing is where you find Prabhupada does that, you just push share, and it doesn't require a comment. Because on these reels that they put on Facebook, it's brilliant what devotees do. He talks 3 or 4 minutes about one subject, and he really explains this in a Krishna conscious light. It doesn't require any explanation there. It just requires us knowing something and knowing what things we can share that are coming from Prabhupada and Scripture and that are relevant and appropriate to help people in that time period. Medhavi or Shrudakirti, can you share something about how we can share things going on in the world in a Krishna conscious way?
Hare Krishna. I think you saw what I posted the other day, huh? Your question was?
Yes, and then I put the post on there that there's...
Yes.
Yes.
Prabhupada said everything's going to go on in the material world in its own way. He said our business, of course, very strongly, he said, the devotee, pure devotee, has no other business except glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead and giving to everyone. Of course, some devotees, sometimes they post from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam where Prabhupada discusses management, proper management, Krishna conscious management.
Yes.
That's very wonderful.
Yes.
And that's what we should do. Whatever we do, we should post from the higher authorities. I wrote something the other day. Let me see if I can find it here. About changes. Prabhupada said, one who preaches without any compromise, he's confidential servant of Krishna. There is no compromise. This is real religion. So this is the person who has received authority to draw mercy, water from the ocean of mercy. And what Krishna said 5,000 years ago, the same thing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, same thing Sadhu Shastra. As Shastra, there's no change. Not that we modernize it. The Shastra should be changed. No, this is nonsense. That is not Shastra. Shastra cannot be changed. Circumstantially, it will be changed. Seasonal changes, no. That is not Shastra. Shastra means it is perpetual. What Krishna said 5,000 years ago, or Krishna said 40 million years ago to the sun god. Not that because it has passed millions of years, and now it's a different time, so I'll have to change it. No. I'm talking to you, the very old system. The Shastra cannot be changed. God's word cannot be changed. Then what will be the difference between God and ourselves? He is always perfect, always perfect. What he said 40 millions of years ago, what he said 5,000 years ago, that's also correct, up to date. That's Shastra.
It seems such a shame when we'll talk in the objective case. Prabhupada understood the case. The objective, we're looking at the objective. And many devotees will get for one politician and against them. People I know are always trying to bring me for or against. But there's already so many more people propagating that. And it's not the treasure house of knowledge that we have. So people are missing out when you try to do that. Better people say, what do you think about world leaders? You can say something like, well, Krishna says that one who's not envious, but a kind friend to all living entities, who doesn't think himself a proprietor, who is equal in happiness and distress, this person makes a good leader. So rather than try to point out something good or bad about the person, some devotees don't like certain people and they put pictures of them calling them demons. I mean, what's the use of that? What good is that going to do anyone? It's better to put what the qualities of a spiritual person are, and then maybe somebody can develop those. Rather than glorify or criticize a certain politician, maybe you can get a book to them. They gave in 1975, they gave a Bhagavad Gita to the mayor of Moscow. And when the communists tried to retake over, that person was Boris Yeltsin. He went on the tank and says, you all go back. And they went back and the country opened up for Krishna consciousness. So rather than argue for or against these things, we think, how can we get a Krishna conscious perspective? Sometimes we can appreciate if someone does something that's favorable. Oh, that's so nice. They did this favorable thing. Let me tell you more about. Sometimes you can, if they promote something and you say, yes, this quality is known by the ideas to bring people to Krishna, not for or against any particular people. People like them, like when I put the Prabhupada reels on there, even people I went to high school with, they really like it because Prabhupada explains the point really well. And that's easier than giving like a 45-minute lecture. I mean, those are good, but when you just put it on and it comes up on the page and people see it, they'll watch the 3 or 4 minute easily. So we should be thinking how we can, like Prabhupada did, how we can bring Krishna to people. Not argue which political party is the better one. But to make a whole propaganda against them would not be advantageous either, would it? Anyone else like to add anything? Yes? Hey, Davi.
Hare Krishna, you're mentioning about Mr. Yeltsin, one of the personalities, political personality, Mr. Rajbansi, who was part of the provincial government that the national government allowed to have a Indian party, even though it was based on the whole idea of getting the Indian community to back the white government. His first act was to demand that the devotees they hadn't been imprisoned, they hadn't been caught yet, but he demanded that the government regularize visas for all the devotees who were in South Africa. So he was fortunate to use his political position by the grace of Lord Chaitanya to help the devotees who eventually came and who eventually stayed and helped arrange for the construction of this temple. So usually politicians are, avoided, but sometimes they can use their position for some spiritual benefit.
But if somehow a book can be given to certain people, or somehow we can get Krishna consciousness to them, that's a better Krishna conscious use of our time than trying to go out with signs for or against certain people. Because especially if we're preaching to people, if a person's selling cars, do they care what political party people are in? If the car salesman is strict on his goal, then for us too, we don't care which political party they're in. We just want to give them Krishna consciousness. So we're better to have a bit of an understanding of what they're saying without having to oppose it or endorse it. But if they say something that we can bring something in from Shastra, then we use that as an opportunity. Should we be going and getting ready for the bus? Yes? Okay. I'm a little confused on what time it is. I do know it's time to be Krishna conscious, but I don't know what. All right, here we go. Here's something you probably forgot existed. One of the things I did on our arrival was ask Atreya Rishi to telex Los Angeles from his office with a request for Palika Dasi to rejoin our party in India next week. After Srila Prabhupada's complaints on the airplane leaving France, I can see no alternative. Harikesha Maharaj has conceded that his cooking is not satisfying his divine grace. While we are here, Nanda Rani will do it. Prabhupada spent a quiet day following his usual routine, while Atreya Rishi and Dayananda Prabhus went off to work in the afternoon. Despite the high altitude causing swelling in Srila Prabhupada's legs and his hand from his uremia, he has decided to stay in Iran until the 13th of the month because the climate here is very nice, sunny and hot, around 90 degrees. Tehran's air, however, is very polluted. This afternoon I went out onto the roof to chant my rounds. On one side of the mountains, tower in the background, and from where we are, one should be able to enjoy a panorama of the entire city. However, all I could see were the misty forms of buildings, shrouded in thick brownish yellow smog. Tehran must be one of the most polluted cities in the world. The devotees have been preaching here since mid-1973, when Atreya Rishi, who is Iranian, and Navayovana Prabhus came here to start a center. Srila Prabhupada originally advised them to preach to the upper class sections of society. Now that instruction is being wonderfully fulfilled by Parivajakacharya Swami, who at the moment is suffering from a burst eardrum and is quite sick. A former Hatha yoga teacher, he developed a good connection to the royal family by teaching yoga to one of their distant relatives who was recovering from a drug dependency. He then began teaching the Shah's nephew's wife, Shanaz. This woman is close to the Shah's wife, and through her he also came to know the queen. In fact, he is the first Westerner ever to enter the inner chambers of the royal palace. Now he preaches to the royal family's friends and relatives, using his Hatha Yoga expertise to attract them to the process of Bhakti Yoga. Prabhupada is extremely pleased with his efforts. In the evening, before any visitors arrived, Prabhupada sat in his room with the Treya Rishi, Harikesh, Parivajakacharya, Gyanagamna, and myself. He was again pointing out the defects of the so-called Mars landing, declaring that in the Shastras it states very clearly that every planet is full of life. Janakirna, this very word is used, Janakirna, congested with life. Everything is described there. There's a milk ocean. Here there's ocean. Well, if you can't see the life, it's not there. Just like if it's different than what we have, it can't support life. Just like we can't live underwater, correct? So there's no life underwater. Well, if you look at the ocean, do you see it? Sometimes it jumps out. But just because you can't live under there, that's why I think the fish all come to here. I think they're coming to look. How are those people surviving out of water? Because to them it's not possible. So just because our conditions of life support us doesn't mean another planet doesn't have another condition. So if we have to take these rascals' version, they are simply rogues. Then the whole Shastra becomes false. And they will advertise that these descriptions in the Shastras, they are all mythology. Of course, this kind of bluffing can go on because suppose this Mars expedition becomes a failure. Like that to failure, it will be failure. So next time if they propose to go there, I think people will hesitate to allow them to. Simply bringing back rocks and sand without any utility, after spending so much money, how long they can repeat this? Yes, we went to this planet, rocks. We went to this planet, rocks. He was interested to hear that Ganagamya Prabhu had some information not found in the newspapers. Yes, I was working for USIS, U.S. Information Service, Ganagamya told him, and I had a commission to paint a large picture of this Mars landing ship. And they had information coming back that they were finding a long block house with a big crater in the center, like a building that had been bombed. 14-kilometer crater. They had a picture like that. It appeared to be a building. So they are all cheaters. I used to live in Florida where they sent up these spaceships. They are all drunkards. They drink alcohol. Very unserious. Srila Prabhupada smiled and used what was to me a quaint comparison to show why we should not accept the scientist propaganda. They say Horus Station is closed, he said with a grin. No sane man will believe that. Horus Station is closed. When Ganagamya suggested that they didn't want to admit that there might be life forms higher than themselves, including God, Prabhupada continued to smile. All the higher life forms are in Europe and America, especially America, eh? That is their mania. They like it like that. There may not be any higher life. That is their preconception. So see, Prabhupada is saying these in a Krishna conscious way. They're thinking there can't be anything higher than the Europeans, can't be people from other planets, and it's okay to take away the land from the Native Americans because they're thinking they're the highest form of life. That was part of Darwin's theory, was the white man's burden was because other races are less evolved from them. It's the white man's burden to take over these other people and to guide them in their life, to take from them. The white man's burden is to direct these people just to work for them. So that's part of what goes on with this theory of evolution that they are bringing about. But they don't bring in anomalies. There's more evidence of so-called evolution on the islands of Hawaii, yet those are only 2 million years old. So why would there be more things there? The things that come up that go against the theory, they just discard that. They only bring in the things that support their theories. Okay, we will end there because we are going on the bus tour. Hare Krishna. No.